Hi, my name is Joel from JRK Knives, and we're going to continue with this knife in a box. So, last time we were filing in that bevels and just see how nice and consistent it is on both sides, and that round file came in really nicely to create that nice rounding in there with that punch line. So, because we used the bastard file to sand this part and on this side too, it's really rough, these scratches. So, what we're aiming for is going to be do heat treat, and for that we need prep work to get there. So the first thing we're going to start is we took the knife from a 3mm thick to a 1mm thick edge. Okay, the first part we did. The second part is make sure that this bevel and this bevel are both the same length, so nothing warps in heat treatment. And the last part is just going to be to refine these scratches to make sure that we don't get any stress risers when we're going to heat treat. So make sure we sand this part of the knife before we go and heat treat. We're going to start hand sanding, but the important thing is take a wooden board, an old wooden board. This is really old, and just place it on the table and place your knife over top. Make sure your knife's point is not protruding out and that there's wooden board in front of it, so you cannot walk into this knife because it is now really thin, a lot thinner than it was, and we don't want any accidents. So just make sure there's wooden board between you and this knife. So if you do walk into it, you walk into a wooden board. And the same G-clamp that you used to clamp your filing jig in, you're going to take and you're going to clamp this knife to the table. The next thing is sanding paper. This has been given to you in the knife in a box, and if you need anything and any more, just go to our website and go order more on jrkknives.co.za. Okay. So this sanding paper is here, 120 grit. It's 120 grits, perfect for before heat treatment. So you just need to sand up that 1 grit. Okay, so just grab a block. Could be a wood block, could be anything. This is a synthetic block that we bought, and just wrap your sanding paper over this. And then what we're going to do when we're going to sand, you can sand it in parts. So I usually take up this knife in 3 different parts. There is the first, second, and then third. So everyone you're going to sand on a different way. So for the middle, usually the easiest, you're just going to move back and forth. There. And then the point, you're going to move back and forth, but be careful not to round out that point, not move over it like that. Just try and stay in that fixed angle there. Make sure you take out all these scratches, because the filing jig scratches are walking in this way. When you're going to be filing that way, you can easily identify where those scratches are and the scratches that you are putting in now. You want all your scratches to walk in the length of this blade. And the last part is the sharpening choil. So you're going to come in with your thing, with your little piece of sandpaper, going to move out and going to sand there. And then when you're almost done, you're going to take the sandpaper and you're going to cut it up in half length part, and then you're going to place it over your sanding block. Make sure there's a rounding on your sanding block, move it up there, and then you're just going to pull the knife. Make sure it's nice and tight and pull that, and that's going to sand that punch line. Going to sand perfectly in. Make sure you remove your scratches there, and then for the last little bit you're just going to move your scratches. Try and get them all the way, same way, and then you do the other side. A little tip and trick, I use paraffin when I'm sanding. Usually goes into little lamps, and I throw it in a little squeeze bottle. So I just squeeze a little bit on my knife there, and then when I'm sanding here and here, it's easier for me to sand because all those little metal particles are out of the way when I'm sanding, and it also does not clog up my sanding paper as quickly, so I can use my sanding paper for longer and make sure I use all those abrasives before I move on to a new piece. Okay, small little tip when you're at the tip. When you're going to do this tip, it's easy for you to round out this part. So instead of trying to stay parallel here, place your sanding block this way, and then when you're going to sand, there's more of the sanding block on the knife, so it's easier to stay consistent at that angle without rounding out this point accidentally, because your tip is the most fragile part of this entire knife because it's the thinnest. Okay, so we're outside. The next part's heat treatment, and I'm going to show you how to build your own little forge for yourself when you're going to start and making this heat treatment process for yourself. Just a little reminder, if you are struggling with this part, because this is a little bit difficult, you could just contact me, send me a WhatsApp, send me an email, and I'll come back to you and I'll try to help you. Otherwise, send the knife back to me and I'll heat treat it for you for a little additional cost, but I'm gonna help you and make sure your knife is nice and hard. The forge we're building is based off a side coke forge, and you can use wood instead of coke. If you do not have, you can get coke at your local hardware store. I think I bought my bag, it's a real big bag, for almost 300 rand, so it's really cheap. So grab your mom's hair dryer or grab a blower if you if you need to do this part, and then I just use a pipe that just fits over this, and if you want no air to come through, just use duct tape or some tape and make sure there's no air that can come through. And I just elevated this part so it stays off the ground because it is wet. And then you're going to build a base for yourself. So this is just normal bricks you build a house with, just to show you don't need no fancy bricks. So it's just a 3x3 here, 3 there, 3 there, and then the next part we're going to build some walls for ourselves. Just keep in mind where the heat is going. We're going to blow from that side in, it's going to pass through, and we're going to put all our coke, we're going to put in the middle, and then the heat is going to go that way. So just make sure it does not blow to your house. Just keep in mind where all those flames are going. And then we're going to build a wall and make sure your coke forge is ready to go. So ready to light this forge. So I built walls nice and high, 2 bricks high for me, and then I put the coke in the middle with a pipe coming in from the bottom, coming up. So coke is really difficult to light, so it's important to build a fire on top of it so it can light the coke that's at the bottom. So I'm just taking fire starters and I'm going to put it at the bottom, and then when I light it, there we go, I'm going to take those small sticks and just pack a nice triangle on top and make sure that fire at the bottom starts. But do not put your blower on, you're going to kill this fire before it starts. It needs to first light all this coke. Tiny sticks. The fire has chilled down and started to light that coke at the middle here. You can see it's dull red, the coke there at the bottom. So that means we can go ahead and start this fire. So when you are going to put on this blower, just make sure your fire is ready. You're going to lightly put it on and make sure that the coke is actually lit, because otherwise you're going to kill your fire when you push too much air into this fire. So I'm just going to lightly put it on.
And then you can see the flames are starting, and in the middle, all this coke and everything is starting to be lit, and it's nice dull red there. And all the heat is coming from above now, and it's coming from the point where this blower is coming out of. So that's the concentration point of all the air pushing through and lighting all this coke. Because the coke is so hard to light, that's why we need that forced air and heat. So the air makes it easier for the coke to light and stay on.
One thing is, when we're going to heat treat, you need something to hold on to that knife. So Sean softly gave me this trick. So what you do is you take long pieces of bar, and then you take pliers, and then what you do is you cut them off, and then I'm going to weld on those bars to this piece handle, so you can have far reach and not burn your hands when you're going to heat treat this knife. So you can cut it off with a metal saw, or you can use an angle grinder. Cut these pieces off. Remember, safety first. Remember guys, if you don't have a welder, use strong wire to attach it to, and remember, it's also a great father and son project this. I welded on our handle, and then I bent it so it can tightly grip my knife. There's the knife, and it's now wet because I took a cast iron skillet and then poured our oil in here. So take canola oil, and then you throw it in a cast iron skillet, a metal can, something that's metal and nice and thick like this cast iron skillet here. So make sure that when you heat treat, it's a lot of heat and flames that's going to come on, so it does not burn anything. And just keep in mind the flames and your hands and safety. So when you're going to quench, get gloves for yourself so you can protect your hands. Important for us to measure where the knife is when we're going to heat treat, and which step and how far we are. So one of those ways is by using a magnet. You can use a speaker's magnet or just any magnet that you can easily stick the knife to when you're going to heat treat, to see when the knife is non-magnetic. But I'll tell you about that a little bit later when we're going to get ready to heat treat. Alright guys, it's time and ready to go. Okay, so there's different stages where the knife is going to be at when we're going to heat treat, and one of the big things is colors. Over the phone and when we're going to record, you can't easily identify the colors. That's the only problem. In person you can easily identify the colors, but you can go on Google and go look up heat treatment steps and look at pictures on how hot the knife must be when you're going to heat treat.
Knife.
As you guys can see, the knife is now a little bit steaming, and because the knife was in the quenching oil just to measure. And at the stadium, the knife is going to turn into a brownish, yellowish color. Okay, there we start to see it at the edge of the knife, and then here at the tip where it's a little bit thinner, it's starting to get blue. Try and make sure the knife is consistent color from tip to heel all the way through. The knife is the same and consistent color. The deeper you go into your forge, the small forge, the hotter it's going to get, but the more impure it's going to get. So there's more oxygen that's going to be there. See that's the blue color I was talking about. Now, when you get too hot somewhere, do not go on, take the knife out, let the heat transfer to the thicker pieces first, and then you go back into the heat. So the aim is now to try and get the entire knife same, consistently hotter, and there we go, blue all the way. From here it's going to get red. It's going to first be a dull red, it a little bit sharper red. So all I'm going to do is open up this forge so that I can get closer to that heat. There we go. And just slowly checking the knife, nice consistent here, and then going back. Don't worry about the handle. We are worried about the blade and the cutting edge. So this is the cutting edge bit. We're worried about that. Want to keep that same consistent color. I moved one of the bricks away, so I have a bigger piece that's going to get that heat. Now I'm getting much more consistent heat on this knife. So it's a big advantage. You can change something if you're going to think it's going to be in your benefit. This is one of those things that's benefiting me because I have much more space where I can get that heat from. There we go. I'm going to show you guys the heat, and then I'm almost ready to quench. Quench is when we put the knife into the quenching oil or canola oil in this case. So there we got a much more consistent heat from heel to tip, and it's now cooled down. We're going to go back. So the easiest way for me now is to put the knife in and try and move some of these pieces so I can get the knife a little bit deeper into that heat. See that white yellow almost where my heat is coming from. There we go, almost there. We're just gonna change the knife around, then I'm gonna put the tip in. I'm wearing this glove because when you're going to put in, sometimes there's flames that's going to come from that. You don't want to burn yourself. There we go, slow and steady. You should be patient with this part, because it is the most important part of making the knife, most technical. Here we got the nice even heat. Just that tip a little bit more. Concentrate on that tip. Put the entire knife in, go back. Do not forget about your knife in the coal forge. It's probably going to melt away. going to take the knife out, place that magnet, make sure, okay, so we know the knife is now above 723 degrees Celsius. Okay, move your knife around. Aha! I like it. I'm going to show you some cool things. You see the handle of this knife is pitch black. Well, grayish black, the handle. And the handle has not gone into the actual oil. So this handle is smoking hot. So that's what I said now with watch out. Even though the knife could be smoking hot, watch out for that handle. There we go. Look at that beautiful white. So that white there is when you harden your knife, you get martensite forming, and that's an indication of the knife successfully hardening. And I'm going to show you now to make sure that this knife is hardened properly. Nice, just cool this down. Watch out, it's hot, so let it sit just for a second. Okay, so while my knife is cooling down there, I'm getting ready for the knife to heat up again. So I'm just going to preheat this oven to 180 degrees Celsius, and nothing's in the oven, so when we're ready, we can put it in that oven. Okay, so we got a beautiful finish here. So it's white. This is martensite that has formed on the blade, and later we're going to put it in the fridge to make sure that everything, all the martensite, has formed. So see, from the heel, from the blade to the tip, all the way there's nice and white. That's how you know you have heat treated your knife correctly. Okay, so we're gonna bake a cookie knife, and this nice batch of cookie knife dough is going to go into the oven for an hour. Do not miss that time. Put a timer on your phone and your mom's phone and your friend's phone to call you in an hour. Do not forget the knife in the oven. So it's 180 degrees for an hour. That's what we're going to do now. Okay, so grab yourself a mitten and take your knife out. Then I'm just going to place it in some room temperature water that cools down, and then till I touch it. And now I'm going to put the knife in the fridge. Let's go. So the knife must just stay in the fridge. There's not a specific time, at least until the knife is 3-4 hours. You can even leave it overnight. Just leave the knife in the fridge so that the knife can cool down. So the important thing is why we put the knife in the fridge is so that the martensite can form completely and the entire heat treatment process can finish. So the heat treatment process starts from where the knife was quenched and cooled down, and now it's at room temperature, and now we're going to take it even more down so the knife can fully harden, and then we're going to put the knife back into the oven for another hour for 180 degrees. Okay, so the knife was overnight in the fridge and I just put it in room temperature water, and now the knife is going to go for another hour 180 degrees Celsius in the oven. See you guys when we're done.